Welcome. Thanks for joining us. I'm Mia, and I'm so excited to have my dear friend Jessica Alix Hesser here. This is really exciting. We lived in the same town for a long time, and now I'm still in Hawaii, and Jess is in Montana, so it's really fun to tune in this way. And we are both Geminis, and we both have a lot to say, and so I'm gonna do my best to keep things kind of streamlined and coherent, but I'm sure we're gonna go into a lot of um different zones. And first, maybe we just kind of want to do a little energetic tune in, kind of where things are at, what's going on, what we're feeling in the world. And Jess does a really amazing annual energetic tune in that she writes out. She's a writer, she's an amazing writer. And we'll share in the notes too where you can find that. But yeah, how are you feeling, Jess? How's everything?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm having a very wild winter here in the mountains, but everything is good. I feel like there's just such potent energy lately that I'm super excited about everything. Even while my home situation is a little bit disastrous. So yeah, I'm feeling good and I'm excited to talk. Um, I know we've been meaning to do this for like what years? I
Yeah.
think a
Yeah,
long time now. So
literally.
I'm excited to actually be doing it.
Yeah, I feel like the energies are that just wild. I mean, it's literally kind of stormy here. It's really windy here, and I know there's storms all over. So it's almost like the earth is really crazy and wild, and there's so much movement and there's so many things happening kind of in the 3D arena too. But I feel really excited about everything. I think we both are tapping into that energetic of like so much expansion and change, and kind of being that birth portal means like a lot of, in a sense, on one level you could look at it as chaos because stuff's kind of like getting all brought up to be seen and to be cleared so that we can create new systems and new ways. So it's a really potent and really interesting time to be alive.
Very interesting time. I mean, honestly, the last few years, I know it's um, maybe in some respects been the last few years have been difficult for some people. And for me, the last few years, like I say all the time, I've never been so excited to be alive. And I don't think prior I was really excited to be alive at all. It's been a lot of my life not really wanting to be alive, like trying to escape in many ways. And now, I mean, yes, doing a lot of healing work that got me here, like okay with being here, but also these times are so potent. And when I was in my meditation today, actually like came through like a hit that, um, I think this period that we're going into is going to be a lot of, like you said, chaos and change and upheaval and things, that maybe we feel to be reliant on collapsing.
Yeah.
And the big, I think the big invitation here, and it's not like a one-off, it has to be continued practice, is what is our orientation to that? What are we choosing to see in that? What is the story we're choosing to tell about that? Because from
Mm-hmm.
one angle, I think it's going to look really, it could look really scary, it could look dark.
Mm-hmm.
And from another angle, it looks like just that, like the rebirth, and we see that there's an opportunity for something
Yeah.
much better to come through.
Yeah, totally agree. And I think for some of us who've been kind of moving outside kind of I'll say I don't know, you could call it kind of matrix life, but outside of the systems, if you're already living kind of independently of those, it's a little bit more comfortable. But if you've really been into them and are relying on them, that it can be more jarring. And like one thing that Jess and I just quickly tuned into before we jumped on was like just the airline stuff is really weird. And I think like all the Boeing planes got grounded, which is interesting. I think that's probably like disclosure showing they're gonna show some weird stuff that's been going on because there's such a huge player in the like 3D whatever black projects, all that kind of weird stuff realm. But then even like our local airport is shut down right now. That's never happened before. They're saying it's like a crack in the runway or something odd that you're like, well, why didn't you just fix that? So just strange things are going on with all the weather. Lots of flights are grounded, and one way to look at that is like, oh my gosh, that's horrible and scary. But another potential is, well, what if, we're getting prepared to move into like an arena where there's different tech and there are different options and there are higher options, because in actuality, we have so much high technology that's been suppressed. What if there are other ways we could be traveling, or better planes, or there's other options essentially. And what if that's just getting us ready for these new ways? I mean, that's how I look at it. And so I'm like really excited. I'm like, oh, this is a sign that we're starting to shift and new things are going to come on the horizon. But, in the moment, it's like Jess's daughter is about to travel. I have a friend who has to go to the mainland because her mom is sick. And, we still have to navigate this. And, how do we want to do that? And I think for me, it's really just kind of going, trusting intuition and really trusting those hits, because despite all that stuff happening, like, you could have a fine experience and have, a totally harmonious one if you need to travel. But it's like, what are our expectations, and are we listening to our intuition? My friend just had a hit, like, no, she's not going to get on that plane that she was supposed to get onto this week. And that's probably the right decision for her. She can always, get on it the next week. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, we were just chatting because I go travel in the winter with my husband, and this winter was like a no. And I mean, that's one thing that we like really love doing. We've loved doing it the last couple years, and we travel for a long time. And it was a clear no for me. And mentally, I could argue that, but like you said, trusting those hits. And this is something you and I talked about recently too, is I think the sort of split bifurcation of, people who are looking outside of them for confirmation, always like something or someone outside of them needs to tell them, what's true, what's real, what to do, what to believe, how to behave. And, maybe in the last 2 years, like with the pandemic shakeup, there were a lot of people sort of like pulling out of where they were looking before. But a lot of them just kind of looking for a new set of people, right? To tell them.
Right. A
When
new direction.
really, I think the thing that's gonna differentiate like how we get through these next few wild years is going to be, can you be internally resourced? Like, are
Mhm.
you grounded in yourself? Can you tune into that communication, and can you trust it and follow it no matter what anybody else says?
Yeah.
That's pretty rare. And I think that's the thing that's going to allow us to be able to move through these times with grace, because we have to be really malleable right now, because nothing's solid, right? Like, things are going to
Yeah.
be things. So it's not like, oh, we just go this way. Like, no, you need to be listening and responding constantly to your inner communication.
Yeah, I think that's huge. And it's kind of like what I've been getting the last few years. It's like, why does that word sovereignty keep coming up? And it's kind of become, maybe it's even a little overused, but I think it's because it really kind of defines like what you're talking about, Jess, right? It's like, are we going to keep like, are we going to go inward and tune in and trust ourselves and our guidance, or keep looking to people outside? Because we're all human. Everybody's just doing that. And everybody else is either paying attention to things outside or going inward. So, you're just as powerful as they are. It's just, are you tapping into that power? And it's these last few years, especially, it's been a huge invitation to just get more clear on that. And for everybody, for me, I've definitely been invited to go deeper, and, on and on. And, in our culture and just in this world, we were all really raised not to do that. Although Jess actually had a different, I want to tune into this. I was going to say that we're raised to go outside, right? With authority figures, whether it's the church, the government, whatever, the doctor, everybody knows better. And this is that breakdown of us going and starting to trust ourselves and create our own systems. But something that's super fascinating, and I did want to ask you about, Jess, is considering that, Jess grew up Christian scientist. Is it scientist? And they have a different set of beliefs, which is really interesting considering, the work that you do now and how you teach people to be sovereign. Can you share a little bit about what that was like growing up in that environment, and how that helped you, I don't know, create your life now, I guess? such a strong way.
Yeah. So Christian Science is really interesting. And, I will say, it is a religion, and like I think all religion ends up with a lot of kind of dogma. Which is why, I'm not part of that religion now, because I prefer to be free of that. So that's definitely still there, I think, within the church aspect of it. But the principles of it are pretty fascinating. And for me, growing up with these principles, like, has allowed me, because the way that my view of the world was shaped from the beginning, and because of what I was exposed to from the beginning, I don't have to fight with like trying to believe that things are not what they seem, just, in the material realm. Like that's not a battle that I have. So in Christian Science, I mean, there's many aspects to it, but kind of the core that's applicable to this conversation is, the idea in Christian Science is that, say we were to experience something, like illness or sickness of some kind. In Christian Science, the belief is that actually, you are a perfect expression of God, of life, of truth, of love. And that anything you're experiencing that is arriving is not that. So let's say illness or disease is actually a misunderstanding of the mind. And the work is to correct the mind. So Christian scientists don't go to doctors or use medicine, but they also don't use like herbal medicines, or anything like that. So if there is some kind of illness in the body, the way to treat it is through prayer. But the prayer is not prayer as that's usually used, which is kind of like, dear God, please save me, right? We're not praying to God to save us or heal us. The prayer is actually correct my mind, correct my thinking, so that I can see the perfect expression of God, of divinity. And what was really great about that upbringing that I can deeply appreciate now is I watched, as a normal function of life, the human body be healed of all sorts.
Oh, kind of froze. Did I lose you? I'm gonna pause it and
With
see if
my
we can get.
family or in our
Oh,
community.
I lost you. It kind of
Oh,
froze
no.
for a second, so I don't know. I don't know if it caught that or not. But can you just like, can you rephrase the last a couple sentences just in case?
So I was saying, if it did cut out, that, what I saw on a regular basis in my own life and with my family and the community, the Christian Science community, were, healings of the body of all sorts of, diseases, illnesses, problems, without the use of medicine or anything like that, through this prayer, that is essentially a correction of the mind. And
How interesting it cut out while you were saying that. Isn't that interesting? Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
yeah, so I just, again, like, I'm not interested in the religion or the church, but when maybe other people kind of struggle with is, like, wondering or believing if it's a possibility that, that mind can affect matter, or that energy can affect matter, like that's not something I question, because I've seen it from the get-go. Like, you can't convince me otherwise. And that's really beautiful, because it just,
Yeah.
it allows me to go so much further, because I don't have to wrestle with that all the time. Yes, I know energy can affect matter, and I
Yeah.
know that thought and mind can affect matter, like, no question. No question.
I mean, that's just it's so powerful, and how powerful to grow up in that paradigm. And I mean, I believe that, and I know you do too, that part of the energetics of this moment too that we're going through is that we're going to go through this journey of all of us humans on the earth together to get to the point where everybody fully gets what you're saying. Like, everybody, like, it's going to be common knowledge that everything is energy, that thought creates form, that our emotions, our thoughts, our frequencies, and all that stuff. So it makes sense, of course, that you have such clarity with this and are able to teach this because you get to grow up in that energetic. And there are so many beautiful things. I mean, I grew up in Christianity too, and there, there's a lot there. There's a lot of programming that, we'll be happy to see broken down and go away. But there's so much beauty and power what you got to experience too. And I agree with that we're all a spark of the divine. So we all have that God source within us, and that we all are powerful creators. And so to have that piece like so young, to be able to see through those eyes, I mean, that's so special. It's really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm deeply grateful for it as an adult. I don't think I appreciated it, really when I was young. It just made me weird. But I'm very appreciative of it now, for sure. And I think, yeah, I think like you said, this is the evolution that we're in is, actually coming to understand and then apply the knowledge that we are energetic beings, that we are creatively powerful, that everything is connected, and that, what we take to be matter, and we have this idea that matter needs to move matter, isn't true at all. And that's science. That's quantum physics. And I was thinking about this the other day because I went to the Joe Dispenza retreat last month. And he has a remarkable amount of science and like all these studies showing what this kind of work does. That is, it's astonishing. It's amazing. I'm so happy for this to be in the world for the people that like need the proof. I don't need the proof.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it excites me to have the proof because I know a lot of people still need it. And it's cool. Like I love the intersection of like the mystical and science.
Yeah.
I think that's amazing.
And it's like it's like a bridge, and it's really beautiful. It's exciting and it's fun to get into that. And it's totally a bridge for those that have been kind of used to, and looking to an authority and looking to that sort of guidance. It's like a playbook for the spiritual in a way, to help get us to that point where everybody gets what's going on, and it doesn't have to be seen as woo woo. So yeah, it's really powerful what he's doing.
I mean, this is what I was thinking about yesterday, today, I can't remember. I was like, we've had this information. I mean, we've had quantum science. We've had so much information that shows, right, that matter isn't really solid, that it's absolutely affected by consciousness,
Yeah.
all of these things. And yet the majority of people will either don't know about it or don't believe it, even when they're presented with it. Like I was just thinking about how funny it is that it still has to be a conversation of like people still need to be convinced. Not that I'm interested in
Yeah.
doing convincing, but it's really funny. Like it's right in front of your eyes.
I know. I totally agree. And something that I've been tuned into a long time is the programming, right? It has been very purposeful to a group, I would say, on this planet to create an environment where it's hard to believe in kind of what you're sharing, where it looks crazy or woo woo or stupid, or like, to make fun of people. It really served it really was serving to controllers, right? If somebody wants to control a population, what's better than to make it so that we don't believe in ourselves, that we don't understand how things really work in this realm, so that we don't understand how powerful we are, how expansive it is, how things really work. So now I can just see it. They did it on purpose through so many ways. I mean, we've been indoctrinated with that, like we were saying, through church, through school, through the doctor, through all of it our entire lives, so that even, usually when people start to tune into this, they're like, I don't want to be weird, or it's my crazy, or people are going to laugh at me. I mean, that's so purposeful, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. I mean, it's definitely on purpose because, man, if people knew what they could actually do and how powerful they are, And I know, even people that are aware of that, like I'm still in a process, right? Of continually kind of pulling back more and more layers of the false. So it's not
Yeah,
like you're in or you're out. It's a process. It's an
it's a
ongoing process. Because it
yeah,
has, I mean, this intentional, I think, um, you know, distortion of who and what we really are has been going on for millennia. So it's not just a process of us
yeah,
like peeling off the things we've come to believe in our own life, but like also epigenetically, like what's in our DNA at this point.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think our DNA was I personally believe that our DNA was tampered with. I think there has been energetic warfare, frequency warfare for, like you said, millennia. I mean, that's why I think they haven't wanted us to understand how powerful energy and frequency is, because it can be used to heal, but it can also be used to harm. So they've utilized it in so many weird ways that I think we're going to find out about, and I think it's going to be pretty mind blowing to learn that yes, there's a lot of people that have known about this for a very long time, and they've been using it to their advantage to basically create slave systems. So this time is so exciting because it's not just like, oh cool, we're going to be able to manifest like more stuff and like cars, and it's like, no, like this is like us um exiting the slave system, becoming sovereign beings, becoming powerful. We're going to create the reality we want. We're going to have systems that make sense. We're going to be naturally abundant, which is what we are meant to be, what this realm is. I don't know, I'm sure you know the Ringing Cedars books. We probably talked about them before, Jess. I mean, I always mention them because I love them so much, but why they're so powerful too is because they paint the picture of like the true humanity, which is where we we can get into like the frequency work that we do too, but it's like where we are the original frequency machines, like we are, like the X-Men or whatever, all the Marvel stuff, all of those things that we see in the movies where like that's our natural state, is that we're telepathic, that we can mold energy, all that stuff, like it's real. And that's where we're going as the frequency shifts on this planet. That's what we have. I think that's what we have to look forward to. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, same. I mean, those books are amazing. And I I do think like everyone has, a little seed of that inside them of, no matter who I ask, like what is the most beautiful vision for the world you could imagine? Everybody paints the same picture. We
yeah,
all know like what's possible and what it is we're really meant to have here. And yeah, so the things, if it gets shaky the next few years, right? It's all those things that are built on the distortions of that are built on lies, that are built on manipulation, that are built on that inverted power, that are crumbling. So, as much as we can like let that happen and not freak out, I think the better.
totally. Yeah, to just hold that frequency. And I think that's what a lot of us are here to do right now. And I know you talk about this just too, is and that's why I love that phrase, keepers of the frequency. Is that we're holding that frequency and that vision to create it and to anchor it into this time. And so if you feel that, to really trust that and to really go into that and let yourself go into the expansiveness of what that feels like, because I do believe that many of us, all of us, I'm not sure, did also live at this planet at a time, whether it was Mu or Lemurian times or whatever, where we did get to experience life in this realm without war culture, without that sort of slavery system. And so I think we all have that deep remembrance of that frequency and what that feels like. And so it's been deeply also traumatic, right? To not be able to live that when we all have that memory. But
Yeah.
but also like I think it's a time to like let yourself go into that, to go into that and really kind of start to dream into that, and let us dream into like what that world feels like, what those systems are. what we
Yeah,
want.
that is one message I've been getting so loud the last few weeks is the importance of actively, consciously engaging your imagination.
Mm.
A lot of people, like even in sort of the circles of, you know, kind of, I don't know, spiritual or esoteric circles or awake circles, rarely do I hear anyone talking about imagination.
Mm.
And our
Mhm.
imagination is their connection with the superconscious mind, right? So your imagination is not like a kid thing. It's not, you know, it's not like a silly little toy. It is a incredibly potent
Yep.
apparatus because your mind is a projector and a receiver, right? So when you're able to tune in your mind to that imagination space and you're receiving from superconscious mind these visions or ideas of things that aren't yet manifest, and you're able to, you know, hold that in such a way, like you were talking about, that you're in the frequency, which means your thoughts are holding that that imprint, and your body, your emotional body, is also holding that imprint. When those two things happen, then you start to vibrate that frequency. And you know, we are electromagnetic beings. When you're vibrating a frequency, that is the signal that you're sending out. This is how we create. Like, this is the mechanics of creation. So, you know, imagination, where we're asking to go whenever it is outside of what we know, like we might have these ideas, but none of us know how to like implement that or create that right now, or we'd be doing it, right? Like, we look at things like war and, you know, human suffering and tragedy, and if we knew how to just wipe it out and fix it, we'd all be doing it. Nobody wants that. We don't quite know. So we need to be tapping into something that is outside of our known space in order to access that. And that mechanism is imagination. So I keep just getting this
Yep.
like big thing of like, please, like, be in creative
Mhm.
play. Don't think that it's, I mean, you can enjoy it as creative play too, but it's actually incredibly important and impactful. And
Yep.
go into that imagination space and let yourself like really be there and play there. Like, not only is it good for you and it's going to feel good, but it's actually really important for us to move from where we are to where we're going. And that a lot of us do it.
Yeah, yes, 100%. So powerful. Yeah, so true. And the imagination. Yeah. Yeah, and I think that there are people that talk about that, but they're not, those aren't the people that have become our heroes. You know, we've gotten a lot of, you know, public figures and heroes that don't really haven't really talked about the things that are mostly important. A lot of that stuff has really been suppressed, and that's something I think has been really suppressed. And if you think about it, like, people often are triggered by people that say something like what you're saying, Jess, because it's like, oh, well, how indulgent. But it's like, well, where did that idea come from, that that's indulgent, or that that's not real, that's not doing anything, or that's helpful? It's like, usually that comes from when we were children and we were scolded for daydreaming or using our imagination. I mean, I was definitely that kid. I got a lot of I got a lot of those comments because I wasn't interested in school. I could feel that it was programming and I was tuning into other things. And so I think that that program is so deep in us that, like, we're not allowed to do that. And that's self-indulgent, and how dare I? But no, it's so important. It's what you're saying is so true. It's how we create the new, and that resonance affects more than I think. I kind of intellectually understand it. It's hard to fully understand the scope of what it affects, but I mean, and there are studies on this. I mean, there are the kinds of studies where if you look, you know, groups of meditating monks or people, how they affected the energetics in a town or a place. I mean, there's a lot of actually studies of stuff like this, but you know, outside of that, I think we've all just experienced this, but we question it. But it really can affect just the others around us, the energetics, the earth, by doing that kind of work. And that work is playful. It doesn't
Yeah.
have to be, it's not heavy work. And especially at this time, because of the old breaking down. And of course, there are parts of that old system that aren't happy to have that breakdown, that are losing things in this time. That there is that kind of programming coming up again, saying like, don't do that. But yeah, do that. What you're saying is so right on, Jess.
Yeah, and I mean, I think people, not everybody obviously, but people talk a lot more about things like manifestation, but very little about actual imagination. And
Yeah.
and of course they're related, but it's funny to see like people can go this far with, yeah, allowing that sort of creative aspect to come forward, but not quite this far. And I think we're really being asked to like go this far. And it is because what we don't know how to do what we're seeking to do yet. So we have to tap into something that is unknown. And even when people are manifesting, usually people are like trying to manifest things, they already kind of know. And we
Right.
need like big leap.
Yeah, to kind of go further than, you don't know what you don't know. So it's why it's like dream work is so important. Why just giving ourselves time to just to be in nature, to just tune in so that the new, yeah, can come in and can reach us, and we're not so busy or so kind of shut down that we can't receive it. Yeah.
That's so important. I mean, I found like we're in the middle of winter, and for me, usually winter, no matter where I live, I've spent like 20 years in tropical climates, but usually the winter season is very wintry for me. It's quiet, it's still, and very internal. I don't really do much. And this winter has been the opposite. I have had so much creative energy, like it's been a little bit insane. Um, so there can be those, our internal movements of like needing slowness, or sometimes that creative energy, at least when it wants to move through me, like sometimes it wants to move really fast. But yes, the importance of having like spaciousness in our life that we can feel and be, because our receiver network is the nervous system. And
Mhm.
when it's like moving too fast, it's too engaged, or it's contracted, or any of those kind of things, and it's not able to be in receptive state, then we miss those messages, we miss that guidance. And we got to be really, I mean, we really all have to be like super attuned to that, and listening and trusting through this.
Yeah, I mean, just give yourself permission to take care of yourself and those around you. I mean, we're so programmed to just go, 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 and to not do that, that most of our nervous systems have been pretty fried. And
I
um
think that's one of the intentional things, you know, to
mhm,
really keep people separate
yeah.
from what the potential and possibility is, was, intentionally really fucking up the nervous system in so
Yeah.
many ways. So
Because
yeah.
also then it's like the emotions are so important too. There's like a whole other conversation there, but if we're totally deregulated and we're just reacting emotionally and our nervous system is fried, then we're so open to be prey to these divisive programs that are thrown at us from every angle. And that's kind of what a lot of what we've all experienced for the last few years. Um, but if we're doing that work, if we're slowing down and kind of anchoring in, it's much easier to kind of weather that storm and to see what's what, and to see it from a distance for what it is, and to come back into that like, oh, okay, this is a divisive program. We all want the same thing. Let's step back into unity consciousness, into like sovereign consciousness, and yeah, imagine our future, kind of move forward from that place. We did a really cool talk. If you guys didn't get to go, me, Jess, and Honey did something called Keepers of the Frequency, and Jess is really amazing with the nervous system work, and she has so much wisdom about that, and I'll post the link below. But that was a really fun kind of tune in, and Jess shared some practices for nervous system support in that too.
Yeah, it's so important. And that was in my energy forecast too, because I actually think our nervous systems are evolving. I mean, I say all the time we're at this evolutionary precipice, and I mean it literally. Like someday humans will look back in they probably won't have history books, but whatever they have. And this will be one of the times they're looking at that, there was this big change in the evolution of our species. That's what I believe. Um,
Okay.
and this is happening, in consciousness, like on that level, but also in the body. And in the body, very specifically, I think it's nervous system changes. For one, yeah, our nervous system have been under attack in many ways. When our nervous system is not relaxed, when our nervous system is relaxed, we're able to tune into different brain states. And that allows us, this beautiful brain apparatus that is receiver, right, and transmitter, allows it to function better. So that's really important that our nervous system isn't always cranked on, so that we can actually use our brains, or start to use our brains in the way that they're really meant to be used, which is this receiver and transmitter of consciousness. And also our nervous system capacity, like when we're just got like all this stuff, trauma and stress and all this stuff in the nervous system, and it becomes very weak, it becomes very fragile. People get stuck in fight or flight, or they get stuck in freeze, or like fight and flight, one or the other, or bounce back and forth. And it should be fluid, it should be responsive. So the nervous system is just what's responding to life all the time. And we have, our brain deletes most of reality. The majority of reality is deleted from our perception, because our nervous system is actually not capable of receiving that amount of information. And that's what I think is changing. I think our nervous system is
Yeah.
evolving right now to be able to receive more. So this means, like, who knows? I don't know exactly what it means, but there's like a huge spectrum of light that we're not yet able to see. There's so much, we don't see the empty space that is like this 100% empty space. Where's that space in my eyes? Like, we're not perceiving reality.
Yeah.
So I think our nervous system is evolving to allow us to perceive more reality.
I
So we gotta like take really good care of the body this year. Really good care.
mean, that makes so much sense if we are, shifting the frequency on this earth, and the veil is kind of lifting because of that, then it would make sense that we would be transforming in that way so that we can hold that more information, or I guess would not freak out too when it comes through, when we start seeing more of the other spectrums of light, if you want to call it, maybe other beings, people are seeing multiple suns. There's a lot of sky events. There's a lot of stuff going on. And I don't think it's all, there will be people that will say, oh, it's all blue beam. And we do have holographic technologies. That's true. We do have that stuff, and maybe some of it is, but I don't think it is all that. I do think the veil is thinning. There's a frequency shift happening. We're going to see more things. We're going to see more where we really are. Like Jess is saying, there's a lot going on that just we haven't been able to fully tune in. I mean, some people always have been able to, and some people may be more gifted with that, but I think we're all going to have that happen more. So it makes sense that our nervous system would be kind of shifting to support that, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I think yeah, it's evolving in ways that we can receive more of that, which allows us to do so much more. So that's exciting.
Yeah.
I mean,
Really.
I think so many things are happening that are just tremendously exciting right now, regardless of, it's life too. Like, I'm in a tricky situation in real life right now, and I have been many times in my life. And I was thinking today, like, one of the things I'm really good at is just kind of like rolling with the punches. Like,
Going with the flow.
don't not clinging on to like, this is how things have to be. And I
Yeah.
think I get a little funny on the idea of sort of, we're creators, and we're manifesting our experience, and they sort of blur that with control. And
Right.
that's like this sort of breaks down a little bit, and that's probably a whole nuanced conversation. But it's not the same at all, right? Like we're not here to control life, and the more you can let go of that control and, you know, support your nervous system to be able to respond to change without you freaking out or shutting down,
Yeah.
and you know, just mentally and emotionally being able to be moved by life and just respond to it, and like not cling on so tightly to how you think things should be, is going to be really helpful. And
Oh,
then it becomes playful, you know, and then you can be delighted by all of the
yeah.
change.
I think you're totally, it's so true. And that's a huge part of it. And that's, I've been going through that the last 5 years, like an evolution of that. I mean, we all have been, I think, but yeah, how can we not want to control it and go with it just because we're doing this work? And maybe even if someone's really good at it, yeah, like you said, we don't control everything and things are going to come up. And because we're having this conversation and we have a huge interest in this and understand a degree doesn't mean our lives are perfect, you guys. Like things come up. I'm going through things too. We always are. And it's to just like be able to flow with it and surrender to that and not um and kind of pivot and go like, okay, well, wow, well, what do I want the outcome to be? What do I want to visualize for this? And it doesn't even mean it's gonna necessarily happen that way, but to start to reorient and instead of going into the panic and everything is fucked and everything is wrong, to just like be able to like have that nervous system to slow down and go, oh yeah, what do I need right now? Am I okay? Am I physically okay? Is there like a tiger gonna eat me? No, I'm like, okay, in this moment, I have food to eat. I have a roof over my head. Okay, what do I need? And to just go to kind of just keep reorienting and then yeah, tuning into like, okay, well, what would be a beautiful outcome of said issue or whatever is happening right now? And to just kind of get into I've been just orienting myself to get into a practice of that instead of the panic. And it helps a lot. And miracles happen. And then it's also tuning into that like expecting miracles and expecting God or the universe to kind of support you. And it's not always in the way I want it to be or expected, but it's surprising, delighted often.
Well, that's the key, because when we're saying we want a miracle, we're saying we want the impossible to happen. The impossible only like exists in the unknown. And if we're in control, then we're attempting to be in the known. So, you know, for us to be in that expression of miracle nature, we can't be controlling.
Yeah.
And that's where like that, you know, that sort of trying to use manifestation to control your life, like, breaks down, because no longer are you actually available for miracles.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I think, like you said, you know, definitely that doesn't mean you can get really good at this stuff, and it doesn't mean life is perfect, but not just that, there's no demand that life be perfect. There's no
Right.
need for life to be perfect. Like when you are the alchemist, when you are the creator, you know, something negative is not a problem. So there's no longer a need to control or demand things show up in a certain way,
Yeah.
because it's not, if you really understand yourself as creator or alchemist, then what appears as, you know, a problem or something negative is not actually a problem,
Yeah.
because you're in that like neutral, you know, the creator state is that neutral state, really. Because,
Yeah.
you know, if you can't be a creator and then need like, and then put your power on circumstances. You can only be a creator if you are owning your power. So that means circumstances are irrelevant no matter how they show up. And the act of creatorship is play, it's creation. Like when you're painting, you're not trying to control something, right? You're just letting like creative impulse move through you. You're letting like inspiration move through you. And it's not a matter of control.
Yeah. Surrendering to the flow, being unconditional.
And like,
Um,
I think, you know, at some point, maybe not in the beginning, but at some point, we enjoy that. And I think there's this aspect of humans too. Like we are, you know, all of this that has chosen to incarnate. And we've chosen to incarnate into this place that is, you know, extremely polarized, that has extreme contrast. Do we think we did that on accident? Do we think it was like a mistake we got here? I don't think so. And if it wasn't a mistake, that means there is a part of us that is and I believe this, I think, you know, the truest part of us is really delighted and like a yes to the whole expression of life. You know, whether that's arising as positive or negative, but like it's just a yes to life and to all of the ways that that arises.
Yeah, it also reminds me of like that Twilight Zone I don't Twilight Zone's a long time ago, but I loved it when I was a kid, of course. And there's like a Twilight Zone episode where this guy oh, it looks like you froze. Let's see. Let's see if I can get Jets back.
Okay.
Oh, you're back. Okay. So, but yeah, of course, I loved the Twilight Zone when I was a kid. But there's an episode where it's like this. I don't even remember exactly, but a fluent kind of seeming dude who had this dream life, and all of a sudden he was like, he was totally bored. And then like the devil pops up and is like, oh, well, that's because you're here. I mean, essentially the point being like, we don't, if we had everything on a platter, and Abraham Hicks, I feel like talks about this one too. It's like, if we had everything all at once, like we would be bored. Like that's not the exciting part. It's the whole adventure of it all.
Yeah.
If we're honest.
Yes. No, absolutely. And I think that's where, you know, when you really see that in yourself, the whole idea of control just kind of evaporates because it's not interesting, you
It's
know,
not
because we
interesting.
are here for the whole adventure. Um,
to to change it up a little bit, do we want to get into the Book of Enoch? I don't know if we need to prepare more to talk about that. I don't know that much about it, but I was so inspired by what we chatted about um a while ago, and I think it's so interesting regarding the energetics.
yeah.
Wait, you froze again.
Did I freeze? Am I back?
Okay, you're back, you're back.
Uh,
Yeah, how to set that up even. Like, so I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Book of Enoch, but as I understand, there's a lot of, I mean, I think of the Bible as like a guidebook and a code for living in this realm. And I think it's been manipulated in a lot of ways. So there's, you know, maybe things we want to just use your intuition, but there's a lot of guidance in it, I think, to how to live our best lives in this realm. And a lot of things that have been, yeah, changed or manipulated or misunderstood. And then also books of the Bible that were left out or hidden or whatever. And that's what the Book of Enoch is, right, Jess? It was like one of the alleged hidden books of the Bible.
yes, there's a lot of controversy actually with the Book of Enoch, I think in kind of religion, like what it is and where it came from. I've heard some very interesting things. Um, and what I had that was fascinating, it's actually called because there's a few different books with similar titles, but this is Introduction to the Keys of Enoch. And it's a
Mhm.
book that I found many, many years ago. And like I knew, I don't know how it came across my radar, but something in me told me like, you have to get this. So I got it and I read it and like it didn't hit at all. Um, and I was like, that's weird because the you have to get this was so strong, but it wasn't hitting. So I put it away uh for a decade, probably. And when we moved here to Montana, we had saved in storage a couple boxes of things, and one of them were books. And it was in there, and I pulled it out. And this time, when I started reading it, like I couldn't stop. It's actually very small. Um, it's pretty fascinating. It's been a couple years since I read it. But what's really fascinating in it is it talks about a coming time, and it doesn't name when this time is, but where things are going to get pretty wild in the world, and there will appear to be a lot of destruction. And essentially, some people will choose to around that time, or some people will like they won't even necessarily choose it because they won't even kind of be that conscious yet. And others will choose to leave, but leaving going to another world, another
Well,
dimension.
And this is basically like, it's like Dolores Cannon's. I mean, a lot of people have had this vision, right? The Dolores Cannon, the world's splitting and the new Earth.
Right. So it's talking about this split, which I've also felt, and I know like we've talked about, and a lot of people have kind of seen that. I really think like the way it's described in the book, the Avalon books, the Avalon series, that we're
Mm.
just kind of disappear from each other. Um, so it talks about that, and the book is really fascinating because it's written in English and then it's written in light language and angelic light language. And so there's these symbols and like a lot of fire, like there's a lot of these fire shapes that are pretty interesting. And one of the most kind of poignant things that it talks about is that it talks about these different ages on the planet where the spiritual center of the earth was located in different regions. And a while back, it was like over Asia. And then most recently, for the last couple thousand years, it's been over the Middle East. So it would be over, really like if you, and it shows a map. If you look at the map, like over the Gaza area, no surprise here, this has been where like the spiritual center of the earth has been located. But it talks about during this time, and again, it doesn't say when the time is, but if you read it, like that the spiritual center of the planet is moving away from the Middle East and it's actually moving over North America. And it's described in the book is it draws a dove. And the dove is like overlaid over a map. And that shows essentially like the spiritual center of the earth. So it's moving from the Middle East to North America, and the center of it is kind of in Mexico, which is interesting because a lot of people have been moving to Mexico,
Yeah.
which, there might be pluses and minuses to that, but I think it's pretty fascinating. So I think, it's very likely that we're in this time of this transition. Um, and there's also some interesting things with this where the dove lays, like it talks about little vortexes on the earth. I think there was one in like Bermuda, uh, Egypt, I think Hawaii. And then where this dove overlays, it actually says on the drawing, the lines of the drawing, these are lines where light workers essentially will be drawn to be activated at the correct time for, helping to hold things through this transition.
Yeah, that's
It's pretty interesting.
pretty interesting because I had a vision a few years back, maybe 2016 or so, about now I'm like, okay, it was about this time. And part of it was that people, many of us kind of keepers of the frequency, if you will be called to be in these different areas to hold the frequency with the earth grids, which are going to be kind of revitalized or returned to kind of their more powerful state. I don't remember the exact language, but so it's really interesting. And I was pulled to through that vision, I was pulled to the island actually. And then yeah, so it's
That's that description is it's been a couple years since I've read it, but that description feels very resonant to like the way it was described in the book. And was interesting for me in it. So I moved a couple years ago from the island to where we are now. And when you look at, and we're in sort of a unusual location, there aren't a lot of people that live here. I'm really here because of my husband, but there were, at any other point in my life, it would have been a no to come here. And when it happened, it was a yes. And then I get here and I find this book, and on that drawing, one of the lines where it says like these people will be drawn to be activated is literally right over my cabin. I mean, like to the T. It's exactly right here. So yeah, it's another part of that, trusting, like listening and trusting, because I do think, there for many reasons, like to bring codes, to pick up codes, but we are energetic beings. Everything is energetic, and there's always this communicate. You're a quantum being, in a quantum world, communicating constantly. We're just not always aware of it.
yeah.
But like going certain places, whether it's moving or visiting or not going certain places, like those are good things to follow guidance on.
Yeah, and even if it's a timer, like we're just talking about travel being a little weird right now, but if your guidance is like you're good, get on the plane, go to this place. I mean, you just gotta. That's why we have to trust our intuition.
Totally. I did that during the pandemic a lot. It was like, go here now, even though when I took my daughter to Paris and everything was shut down. And I knew as a mother, like we have ancestry there. She was just becoming, she was just about to turn 18, just becoming an adult. And everything in me said, like, she needs to go there. She needs to be there now. And the airline said, you can't go without all the things. And I had to have like paperwork and permission and, all the things. And I had none of it. And we went. And we went like with no problems whatsoever. We weren't asked for anything when we got off. We were not like
Yeah.
harassed, nothing.
Yeah, that's like the coolest, I think, lesson a lot of us. It's that sovereignty piece and trusting ourselves through the last few years. I mean, I learned that I didn't, I didn't travel like you did, Jess. I just didn't have that directive at that time. But to watch you just move and other friends of mine, Chelsea, that had the guidance and trusted it and didn't have, the thing that you're supposed to have to travel, didn't have the papers, the whatever, and just moved through with ease and grace, through these systems because also the realization is that even in the 3D a lot of this stuff isn't legal that they're doing. Essentially we've been acquiescing to all these shitty systems our whole life, so we don't actually have to acquiesce to them. They're not even legal, most of them. They just program us to be afraid of not listening to the authorities. But when we tune in and go like, wait, I'm going to reject that, I'm not doing that, like, we're free. And then also the universe supports that, because it's such a high frequency place to be in, that suddenly, like, yeah, just moving freely around the world, even when everybody's like, you can't do that, you can't do that. I mean, people didn't even believe you. It's funny, but it's such you're an expander for me in that way. And in my town, even I didn't like wearing the mask because I had childhood traumatic asthma and stuff, so I couldn't breathe. So I'm like, I'm not wearing that thing. And so I had to get really energetically kind of pumped up if I'm like gonna go have a town day and be around all the COVID stuff. I would, make sure I did my meditation and my dance or whatever and be like in a really high vibe state. And then I would go and I would just move through in a really harmonious way. And people would talk to me that I feel like normally wouldn't, because I think they could feel that energy. So yeah, a lot of power in those years. That whole experience was crazy and traumatic, but also so expansive.
Yeah, because we were really learning like how to step into that. And it, like we really had to actually
Yeah,
learn and practice it. I mean, for me, yeah, it was like ninja level is how it felt.
it is ninja level.
It was ninja. And after I was like, oh damn. And for me getting to do that with, with my children, like part
Yeah,
of why I was doing that was there was such heavy pressure on the kids because my kids were young adults, well, they're teenagers at the time, such heavy pressure on them to do all the things. And no amount of words, like no amount of me telling them you don't have to, was ever going to hold weight against that, right? Because first of all, I'm the
yeah,
mom. I may be a little crazy, but it was so intense because it was not just coming from like the news and social media was scaring them, but also their peers, like the pressure that I saw other young adults and children putting on other young adults and children was insane. And they were
yeah.
like, maybe somebody was doing it to them, right? And that's the way it works. And so part of me doing that was like, the only way I'm going to get my kids who were, at an age or just coming to an age where they can make those decisions on their own to not do this thing is to prove to them by doing it with them that the things people say like are real or true or that you have to do are not necessarily. And you have to go find out for yourself. And you have so much creative power and like, come with me. We're gonna try it, and I'm gonna show you. And
Yeah.
that was, you know,
It's so cool. I mean, how expansive. And I know Jess's kids, and I've seen what a positive effect you doing that has had on their lives. They are so strong, they are so independent and powerful, and they believe in themselves. And I mean, what a gift to have that lesson from you. I mean, and I think it's like maybe it's like a good note to kind of like close on, is because I think what we both feel and is that we're moving into, or kind of like that was the maybe the beginning of this sort of deeper lessons for all of us in what you were just talking about, but that this is going to get louder, and it's not going to be necessarily, you know, in the COVID or that sort of like program this time, but it's going to be this frequency expansion that might, it's going to look crazy, and we're going to have to go within ourselves to find that deeper guidance again and up level again and trust ourselves and move through it with grace. And yeah,
yeah, I
expansion.
feel like it was a little, as you know, disruptive as it was. I feel like it was just kind of a teaser. You know, to show us like, okay, here's where you need to, you know, kind of get fortified. Here's where you need to develop, you know, more skill, or more sovereignty, or whatever it is. Like, it really showed us where our weak points were and where our strong points were. And hopefully we were participatory in that and learning from that, and, you know, strengthening those places that we were shown needed it.
Yeah,
Or dismantling those places that we were shown, you know, were not life supportive.
you're dismantling the programs. And I just want to say too, what I feel is coming is super positive. And I think because, you know, the way that Jess and I have been talking about everything, you kind of get our perspectives. And um so I'm super excited about what's coming. I feel like it's so expansive, and where we're going is so beautiful. And this was part of the vision I had years ago too, that so much I had been concerned about and really heavy big things was already starting to become harmonized. And so we are moving through, I would call it a war, and a spiritual war. I think we've been in a war for a long time, and I think we're coming out of that, and in the kind of 3D, and then outside of that, the energetic expansion, where we, if we choose it, if we claim it, we are moving into like a golden age. That's kind of how I see it, because I think tons of high tech that's been suppressed is about to, or being released, about to be released. We're going to move into free energy, healing technology, like that's going to seem like magic to us because it's so far beyond what we have been exposed to at this point. Which I think is just a bridge to, like just talked about, us healing ourselves, because we have that capability too. But I'm open for all of it. I'm open for the high tech healing devices and the, you know, stepping into our power, all of it. I'm here for all of it.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. I think it's gonna be really interesting. I think it's gonna be really beautiful. I'm really, yeah, I'm really excited actually to, you know, see what unfolds.
Yeah, and I would just say also, I like to talk about the 3D things sometimes, because to me they're signs of what's breaking down and this new systems that are coming. But you know, if that stuff stresses you out, I would just tune it out. I don't think you need to, like the politics and all of that stuff. I just don't think it's necessary. If it's fun for you because it makes you excited about, you know, for me, I'm like, yes, I'm so ready for these governmental systems to fall and for us to create new ones. Like, I'm so excited. And I see it all as a literal movie, because I think a lot of things have actually already happened behind the scenes, like literally, and we are kind of literally watching a movie so that humanity can kind of get ushered through this period. So that's why I kind of enjoy it. But I would just say, if that's like stressful, it's too much for your nervous system, like don't tune into it. I really think it's all working out for our best, and just take care of yourself, you know, and do what you need so that you can support yourself, support your nervous system.
I second that, because a lot of that stuff, you know, is frequency modulation, like intentionally creating disturbances in people so that they're more easily to manipulate. So if you find yourself disturbed then, know that that's a possibility, and, prioritize taking care of yourself. And here's why, like, sometimes people are like, no, we need to know, right? As if you're not a good, caring human, if you're not constantly subjecting yourself to the trauma of the world. First of all, your nervous system was never built to take in that amount of information, right? Like, it's not, this is very, very, very new that we even have access to, the images that we have access to, and just the amount of information. But also, your brain cannot be in those survival states that even if you are not there experiencing it, that's what it elicits in you, right? It's the trauma response that's eliciting it in you. Your brain cannot be in that state and in the creative state at the same time. And which do you think actually serves humanity? You being in a survival, like it's not even an organic, because you're not experiencing it, right? So an inorganic survival state that's been triggered in you, that completely, just from a matter of brain function, you can no longer access higher intelligence. You can no longer access creativity. So, I wholeheartedly disagree with the idea that for us to do something helpful or care, we have to inundate ourselves with the trauma of the world. It doesn't mean your head is in the sand, but when you are responsible for, choosing your state, you want to be in survival or you want to be in higher intelligence and creativity and actually go serve the world, like that means it is essential that you're taking responsibility for what you're subjecting yourself to, what you're allowing into your field, and what kind of emotional triggers you're allowing yourself to respond to.
Yep. Yeah, I 100% agree with that. And that's a big one right now. And again, let's ask ourselves, why would we feel that guilt, or why would we feel that shame, or what? It's a program. Who would have, who would, benefit from such a program? And it gets the same people that benefit from the war. So they
What
know that.
does it serve? Like, if you take this is like the proper use of, we talk a lot about being in creative mind and imagination, but logical mind has a use. And if you take those kind of things to inquiry with the logical mind, they break down really fast. Like, does it actually help anyone or anything or anybody?
Yeah. And I think it's to get into that place, because sometimes it's like, oh, well, you don't, yeah, again, you don't care. It's like, no, I mean, for me, I care so deeply that I went through a very deep personal journey with all of this stuff on my own to get to what you're saying, Jessica. And I went, and some of that was painful and deep, and a dark night of the soul when I found out the truths of this realm and what's been going on with the trafficking. I mean, I'm not going to go into it, but really heavy stuff. And what I came to through that journey is what you're saying, Jess. And also, like, okay, well, if I need to do something, what is it? Because I'm either just going to fall into a depression. I might as well not be here if I'm going to just steep myself in this energetic. Or I can go, okay, well, what are my gifts and what can I actually bring to this that would be expansive? And for me, it's been what I've been doing. Part of it was Mercado Sagrado, and was just going like, okay, I want to bring to this world and support the new creation. Like, what would a golden age be like? What kind of people would be there? What would they be talking about? What kind of, would they be doing? Just support all that's wholesome in the world. But, for everybody, it's different. But once you kind of tune in and then find that piece of what you feel you're gifted, and maybe your gift is just being like a good mom. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. It's like, there's so many different um options, but then that really also gives you just like peace of mind, because you know that you're giving your gifts and you're doing the best you can to support the future you want to see. And I feel that's really powerful and potent when we all do that. But yeah, for me it was a journey to get to that realization, for sure.
Yeah, I think, to some degree, it is for everybody, because I think most of the people that, end up sort of with this orientation, definitely not the people that don't care. Definitely
No.
not the people that aren't feeling.
Yeah, it's the usually the deepest feelers that have really agonized and went through it and went like, okay, what's the directive here, God? Like, what are we supposed to be doing? But yeah, anyway, but that's like a really, I feel like a beautiful note to leave it on. And in general, I think, yeah, we're moving into more of a space of where we're going to be more in wonder and awe and innocence and open-heartedness. And I know you talk about that too, Jess. And so, yeah, I'm just excited, and it was so fun talking with you about all this, Jess. We have to do this more often. We'll do more. We can
Yes.
talk forever, you guys, but we don't want to, I don't want to.
Because these are usually just our conversations. These are our voice notes. And we're always like, we should just record it.
Yeah, we're always like, oh, we should have recorded that conversation. That was great. Or so we'll do more of these. Yeah, if there's anything you guys want to want tuned into or want to hear about, let us know in the notes too. But thank you so much for being here. And hope you have a beautiful day and a beautiful week, and sending you all lots of love. Thanks, Jess.
Bye.